I want winners. I want people that want to win.
You play to win the game. You don't play to just play it.
You got to put your money where your mouth is, Pete.
It's not gambling advice.
Monday, May 2nd, joined here by Aram on Not Gambling Advice. Today, we're going to talk about some waiver wire pickups, some pitching streamers for the week. Aram is the prospects guy. We always introduce him as that. And really at this point in the season, Aram, a lot of the young guys are who are left to pick up. So this episode, I feel like, is just going to end up turning into us talking about guys that might still be in the minor leagues. Today is kind of like the Super 2 deadline too for a lot of guys. Jose Miranda's being called up. MJ Melendez just got called up. So we're probably going to end up talking about a lot of those guys. I'm going to throw it over to you first. Let's talk first guy for you.
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, the Super 2 deadline is or like the soft deadline, depending on the player, is a big reason why we've kind of seen, some of the call-ups now. And there's the big names that get called up, but I do think that there's a level of just being quick on it and also picking the right spots, right? MJ Melendez gets called up. Jose Miranda gets called up. You can only pick up one of these dudes. Who is it? Why would this guy make more sense than that guy? And that's where the challenge is, because you can't just look at the prospect rankings and say, oh, well, MJ's a higher rated prospect, so I'll just pick him up. It doesn't mean he's going to get as many opportunities maybe as Jose Miranda out of the gate. So this is the perfect prime time to capitalize on prospect knowledge, or listen to some people you trust in the prospect space, because there's some good players that you could scoop up, and some are going to struggle out of the gate, as we've seen with some of the rookies already, but some might come out swinging, and identifying those candidates is pretty good. But are we starting with the just regular position player pickups and then ending with the streamers, or how are we approaching this one?
Yeah, we're going to go into pickups first, and then we'll end with the streamers. But I mean, really, if we want to jump into it, we just mentioned those two guys, MJ Melendez and Jose Miranda. If we want to talk about them right now, I think that is a perfect place to start.
Mm-hmm. I'm with it, because I love both these guys, and both of them, frankly, did not get off to great starts in AAA. And, I don't know if people are going to look at that and say, ooh, well, should I drop, some bench player that's an MLB vet for one of these guys? The answer is yes. The answer is absolutely yes. First of all, and something that I think doesn't really show on the Fangraphs page, is it's freaking cold in the Midwest. And it's freaking cold where Jose Miranda plays, and it's even colder where MJ plays in Omaha, in the Minnesota area. Like it was sub 30 for multiple games. You're not hitting in that environment. Both of them were not striking out a ton. Both of them still look exactly the same, and both of them were phenomenal in AAA last year in large sample sizes. I'm expecting both of them to be really good. I would say, though, I could see Miranda getting more consistent ABs out of the gate. I know the Royals, they wanted to get MJ moving around a little bit because they have Salvi Perez at the catching spot. And the DH spot is somewhere where we could see MJ get some run. He's still going to catch some games. He might get an appearance here or there in the field, depending on how it goes. But when I look at Miranda, Miguel Sano's hurt right now. Colby, and I think it could be one of those scenarios where if Miranda swings it from the jump, Miguel Sano might not get his job back. And even if he does, Miranda's capable of playing all over. They tried him a little bit in the outfield. He's a natural third baseman. They've tried him at second. He can play first. He's not great in any of the spots, but it's the bat that's really going to keep him in the lineup. And I believe the bat can really keep him in the lineup with the power and the batting average that he can contribute for fantasy.
I think the important thing too about, Miguel Sano potentially not winning his job back is the positional versatility. Mm-hmm. Jose Miranda is going to give you more positional versatility, whether he's playing third, whether he's playing second. Miguel Sano can only play first base or DH. And this Twins lineup is filled with a lot of guys that, are kind of these tweeners that are first baseman, outfielders. Like Alex Kirilloff's going to have to come back at some point. It would be better for them from an injury standpoint to put Alex Kirilloff at first base.
100%.
And Miguel Sano maybe is a potential trade candidate at some point. Honestly, he's hitting bad, but his expected numbers were pretty good. He's still hitting the ball hard. But I think Jose Miranda is a much better piece in this lineup as sort of I've always advertised him as a Luis Arias, but with more power.
With power.
And so you have two of those guys in the same lineup. it's fantastic. So yeah, I'm all over Jose Miranda as a pickup because I think he's going to be in the lineup every day. But moving over to MJ Melendez, where do you think he slots in? And I don't even know if you really can know the answer to that because, like you said, it's kind of Salvador Perez is going to be the catcher or he's going to be the DH. Does he get some run at catcher? Does he get some run maybe at first base? Does he get run at third base? Are they just going to throw him around wherever he fits in?
That's the big question because I don't even think MJ Melendez knows the answer to this question, frankly. And I know he's just got to be eager to be up at the big league level and he'll do whatever they want. But he made 2 starts in right field. And this is a guy that had only caught in his entire career up until the end of last year where they were getting him some run at third base as well. Bobby Witt's hurt now too, so we'll see how that looks. But MJ looks pretty good in the outfield in the limited action so far, made a diving catch out there. And I think he's going to catch, in the days they want to give Salvi days off. I think he's going to DH a bit too, because Hunter Dozier is accounted for about 30% of the DH ABs right now. And he can be better than Dozier. And then you could sprinkle him in the outfield if you need. So another guy that versatility doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to be great everywhere, but he's capable there. And I think he's capable enough in right. I think he could be capable enough at first, though they haven't really placed him there. So I would shy away from that. I think it's going to be more DH, catcher, and maybe some corner outfield, maybe a starter two at third. But I think that ability as a catcher to really be able to even play anywhere else should get him as many ABs as possible, and was part of the reason why the Royals were confident enough to call him up right now, even though he might not have a clear path to everyday playing time.
Exactly. I mean, like we said, the rosters are shortening back to 26. It would be silly for them to call him up and then not play him to what he deserves. Yeah. The only thing I have such a bad taste in my mouth about catchers moving to outfield from Blake Swihart, because I don't think it was that would put Blake Swihart in the ground. I just don't think he could hit MLB pitching, but that just left a bad taste in my mouth, moving catchers around like that. Because I don't know if they're necessarily ready to move to the outfield always.
No, but I will say MJ, it seems like the kind of guy that can, right? Like he's a gamer. He also has a 70 grade arm. So like, he doesn't even need to be this agile dude out there. If he's just an anchor in the corner who catches everything that he's supposed to catch and flashes the big arm, he's more than passable out there. And he knows he hit 41 home runs last year. He led the minor leagues. That's what's going to keep him in the lineup. Yeah. And I think he's going to be focused on that. And honestly, it's a big learning curve as a catcher anyways. So maybe not as much pressure there. Has Salvi to kind of lean on defensively, and offensively, the guy's got crazy power. He walks a ton. And he can hit lefties. So I think they can really justify keeping him in the lineup. And I would pick both of these guys up because I think one of them, at least one of the two, is going to stick. I think there's a good chance that both of them could stick, especially with the Twins, who are looking for anything in the consistency department right now. And they need as much depth up there as they can get. There's a lot of just injuries and injury-prone players that they have.
There's a massive power crunch, too, right now in baseball. And I think both these guys add a layer of massive power potential. That's huge. I'm going to be picking these guys up too, because I have a couple teams where like I'm winning in average every week. I'm winning in runs every week, but I need home runs and RBIs. And these two guys are huge in those categories. Before I move on to some guys that I think we should pick up, I want to ask you about, some other guys that maybe their service time, clock is going to start ending and they can make the jump to the big leagues in the next few weeks. We talked about Max Meyer pre-show. Do you think he's a guy that then the next couple of weeks, the Marlins are going to need him in the rotation over a guy like Eliezer Hernandez, who really has not been pitching well?
No. And that's the thing is Eliezer's been fine enough if he's your number 5, which is what he is. But the Marlins have a guy that is shoving in AAA in Max Meyer. And it's not just shoving. I mean, it's dominating really against whether it's Ronald Acuna on a rehab assignment or it's just a loaded lineup of top prospects. Meyer's been phenomenal from, when I saw him on the backfields in the spring. It's hard to justify when you're a team that just was on a 7-game win streak that's trying to emphasize that they're winning now, that Max Meyer isn't ready or that the team is better off without Max Meyer. I have a fairly strong level of confidence that he's going to be called up at some point in May. And maybe in the next 2 weeks. So if you have the roster spot, I would stash him. It's a matter of when, not if. He's proven everything he needs to prove. I think the Marlins are just trying to make sure that they have everything sorted out before they make that decision because Eliezer will probably get one more start. What if he carves? What if he goes 7 scoreless? Now the Marlins have another decision to make. I still would go with Meyer, but I think they want to be really sure before they make this decision, especially after the roster crunch. But I think Meyer is going to be up in the next 2 weeks. And to be honest, he's going to get you a ton of strikeouts. His command looks good. I don't know if he's going to be stretched out 7-8 innings, but he's going to give you 5-6 innings of really good ball. And I'm pretty sold on what we saw. Everybody seems to feel the same way. And that's a guy that could come right out of the gate and be somebody that contributes to your starting rotation for your fantasy team from the jump. So I would definitely stash Meyer.
I mean, that's a guy that's probably not on anybody's radar right now. But for reference, Mackenzie Gore was owned by like 2% of people 2 weeks ago. Now he's owned by 60%. Matt Brash, the same thing coming to the year. He was this hyped up guy, right? He struggled with command so far this year. Max Meyer is a better prospect than both those guys. So you have to imagine that if the Marlins right now are 12-10, or they have a winning record, right?
Yeah.
They need to win now. If they weren't winning, okay, you leave him in the minors, you let him get developed and whatnot, but he can help them right now. And, you mentioned that he's not going to get stretched out to 7 innings, 8 innings, but nobody does anymore. Really.
No,
I mean, 5-6 innings is fine in today's league.
And I mean, the fastball has really been impressive for me. And again, you're going to get the strikeouts. He's in AAA right now. He's punching out more than 11 batters per 9. He's not walking a ton of guys. A 1.71 ERA, and that came after 10 innings last year in AAA, where he had a 0.9 ERA. So his ERA in his career in AAA is flirting with the sub 1.5 range. I mean, he is ready to go, and he's got that kind of mentality and that ability to go out there, and I think he'll make the acclimation, or he'll get acclimated very quickly. I see him as that kind of guy. Whereas Brash, he's got to fight his command. He's got to fight some things. I don't think you're going to have as many growing pains with Max Meyer, especially with the way he's able to command the slider. I would steal him up right now, and it's worth waiting.
So one other guy that I have drafted in multiple leagues, and I'm just sitting here waiting patiently, but growing quite impatient, is O'Neal Cruz. This guy isn't really performing that well in the minor leagues right now. And this is a guy that we expected to break camp with them to begin the year.
Yep.
And just has not. But we really just have not heard any update on him. Is he going to be a guy that's called up this week or in the next 2 weeks, or are they just going to take their time with him?
O'Neal Cruz seems like it's one of those guys where there's just more to the story and we don't know, right? I look at O'Neal Cruz and same thing. Cold weather. I mean, he was playing, I was watching games where it was 20 degrees and you could see him taking, half-ass swings. To a degree, I don't blame him. To another degree, it's like, you're going to call that guy up after that. Literally taking, 50% swings because he was so cold. He should have broke camp, but that doesn't mean that you should just go hit 176 and kind of mail it in AAA. So I don't know if they're going to want to reward that. I'm not sure how they're going to approach that. And I think they're going to want to see a little bit more consistency out of him. The thing is the second Cruz comes up, he's instantly one of the better young power threats in the game. But at what point is it worth,
guy?
Yeah, no problem with sneaky bat to ball. But at what point are you saying, okay, well, let's make him earn it? And maybe he earned it last year, but right now he's not earning it. I know MJ wasn't raking, but I look at O'Neal and it seems a little bit different. I don't know. It's tough, man. I wouldn't give him up, obviously, because the second he gets called up again, you could see him be galvanized and give this max effort again and be this different guy.
Yeah.
But I do wonder how much of the off the field maturity is playing into, maybe part of the reason why we don't see him up at the big league level yet.
In a non-keeper league, at what point do you start to worry and kind of cut bait? Is it June 1? Is it another month? Is that like the leash you're giving or what is it?
I wouldn't be worried about him in a keeper league, obviously. In a non-keeper league, yeah, I think once you get to – that's a great question, man. I think once you get to mid-June, you got to start looking somewhere else.
You got to start cutting bait, yeah.
Because
those roster spots are valuable.
It's too valuable, and at that point, you're trying to make your playoff push, and there's going to be that process of getting acclimated for him too, and to be able to do that, by the time he gets acclimated, the season will be almost over. I would rather see somebody else using that roster spot at that point. And I think by mid-June, you gotta probably cut your bait.
Absolutely. Okay, I'm going to move away from the young guns for a second. I'm going to give one name that I think we really, really need to be picking up right now. I think he's owned right now in, 40, 45% of leagues. So not exactly the deepest cut here. But this guy, I don't know if we've realized that Wilmer Flores has been raking for a long, long time. Since 2019, he has hit 264 with a 793 OPS and 714 plate appearances. He has a run in 7 of his last 9 games. He's hitting third in this Giants lineup, has first base, has second base, and third base eligibility, and just seems like a guy, another example of a San Francisco Giant that just comes in and rakes in a way that we really didn't expect, except you go down his Fangraphs page, and he's been doing this for the last 6 or 7 years, and we just really haven't realized it.
It's amazing how the Giants seem to just find guys and not only find them, but then just put them in positions for success. But I wonder if, like, turning question back on you, with some of these Giants players that, you don't know how much run they're going to get, or, how much they like to divvy up the playing time. How much does that factor in for you guys? Like when you're building your team?
Yeah, I mean, it really is tough, right? They're playing guys that I've never even heard of, like Vossler. Where did this guy come from, right? But I think Wilmer Flores is a guy that last year played 140 games, had a 430 plate appearances, right? He's a guy that's going to get a lot of run just because he's a veteran now. He's 30 years old and does have that positional versatility, like I said. So I think that he's pretty locked down with his role. He obviously hits lefties better than righties, but I don't think that matters at this point either. I think
he crushes lefties though too, and that's why he's always going to be in there. But what about like when Longo comes back?
When Longo comes back, it's a good question. I think he gets moved over to first and DH more. Darren Ruff has not been playing well, and I think he's probably gonna lose some run here in the next few weeks if he doesn't start playing well. I think that's the guy when Longo comes back, right? But I think Longo coming back too is like when Longoria comes back, okay, great, but he's always a risk to be injured within 5 games too. So I don't know how much run he's even gonna get.
And Wilmer's another dude that, again, so you're going to want to give Longoria days off. You're going to want to give Ruff some days off. You're going to want to give all these different guys days off. And all of a sudden you realize Wilmer doesn't have a solidified spot, but he's somehow in the lineup almost every day. And that's where I can, really see it from you and see what you're saying. And again, like this goes back to the beginning of 2019, where again, it's pieces of seasons, but you combine it all together and you've never had a WRC plus below 100 really since he's been in the league, other than his first full season in 2015. So, Wilmer Flores, I think, has been severely underrated in the game in general. And again, it makes sense that the Giants went and found this guy. And of course, I've really maximized his value, but he's also walking more than he ever has in his career too, which I think has taken some pressure off of that hit tool. People don't realize he can sneak into some home runs too. He can hit you 18 to 20, but now that he's getting on base, especially when you're in categories, now that he's getting on base the way he is, I love Flores as a guy that you can plug and play, especially if you have an injury or something, or, let's say you have that loaded lineup. There's days where I'm starting Wilmer Flores against a lefty pitcher over some more established players, especially when Flores is swinging it well. And when he gets hot, I mean, he really gets going.
And there's just value in hitting third in that lineup. I'm going to move to another guy, and it's my last pickup this week. This guy's owned in less leagues than Flores. He's owned in 12% of leagues. It's Santiago Espinal of the Toronto Blue Jays, who was traded way back when from the Red Sox for Steven Pierce. When the Red Sox went on that playoff run, Steven Pierce went absolutely ballistic.
Yeah.
Huge, totally worth it.
Espinal, MVP, World Series MVP, by the way.
Yeah. So Espinal, since coming up into the big leagues, has been amazing. He had 311 last year in 246 plate appearances. Didn't show much power, but that's just because I kind of think he was a little overmatched, but still hit amazing, right? This year, he's kind of activated more into that power. 167 ISO. He's hitting 264 so far, 2 bombs, 3 stolen bases. And yeah, he's hitting 7th and 8th in that Blue Jays lineup, but that Blue Jays lineup is so stacked that wherever you're going to hit, you're going to have potential for runs and RBIs. I think the other thing that goes unnoticed, or it's underrated from a fantasy perspective because it's not valued, is Espinal's defense. But Espinal is a premier defender at second base. He has 3 defensive run saves thus far. he's going to be in the lineup every single day, especially because Kevin Biggio sucks. Like he can't hit the ball at all. And I think Espinal's won the job from him at this point.
And Espinal is an elite defender at third too. And that was something I was going to mention also. Yeah, of course. So there's no, at least as far as we know, there's no defensive run saves, and now it's above average leagues. But you are getting somebody whose glove is going to help keep him in the lineup. And again, when we're talking about waiver pickups, it's all about the run. How much run are these guys getting? Espinal's been hitting enough to keep himself in the lineup, but even if it's a little bit up and down offensively, that glove is going to provide so much value to keep him in the lineup. But again, he's someone that's going to great bat to ball. He's going to help you a lot in the average department. He'll probably sprinkle in a few stolen bases, probably leaves a bit to be desired in the power area. But again, as you mentioned, so many RBI opportunities because it seems like the Blue Jays are just loading and crowding the base paths at all times, and opportunities to score runs too, which, depending on your league, I think is really something that will be easy for him because you're batting eighth, and then you go to the 9-hole, and then it's back to the top of what is one of the best lineups in baseball. So he'll get a lot of opportunities to score as well. And, he can run a little bit. He's pretty quick.
Yeah. 3 stolen bases already is pretty great. One thing we always talk about, Aram, right, is we see guys that are striking out 35% of the time. We're like, can you please just cut the K rate, right? Go for more bats to ball, go for a little bit more average. Espinal just went the opposite way this year. 12% strikeout rate last year, 20% this year. But I think that's actually a good thing because to me, it shows that he is trying to activate a little bit more into that power and keep it to a reasonable margin, right? Still a 20% K rate. That's fantastic. But I think that's allowing him to really choose the pitches that he wants to explode on. And if he misses, but he knows that he's going to connect at times and be able to do a bit more damage. If he's not hitting 300, if he's hitting 275 with more power, he's going to take that all day long. And I think the Blue Jays may have had a little bit to do with that development.
And it hasn't shown in the results yet, but it's a great point. He's impacting the baseball with more authority. Whether you look at exit velocity, expected slugging, whether you just watch his ABs, he's definitely looking to do a little bit more damage. And that makes sense because generally speaking, he was coming into this year thinking, okay, I'm probably going to play a little bit of third. If you're playing third, you got to produce some more power, right? It just comes with the profile nowadays. Fortunately, with more run at second, he doesn't need to have as much of that power profile. But as you know, just in today's game, you got to be able to impact the baseball at least a little bit, be a 430 or above slugging guy, which he's now doing. But I think we're going to see that power make its way into his game even more so. And that's what I'm excited about is as he continues to tap into that. Another guy that, he's not someone that is going to hit 480-foot home runs. So if we see the baseballs adjusted back with what he's already been able to do in terms of improving the power, I think we could see 15 to 20 home runs here. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. I think even 20 plus is a possible exciting outcome. But if he gets enough opportunity, I think he can hit you 20.
Agreed, man. Agreed. And I think it's, it's a good guy to have on your watch list if you're in a shorter league. But if you're in a deep league, that's a guy you need to roster ASAP. Aram, I think let's move to some pitching guys, maybe some streamers, maybe some guys that are good streamer options. And if they pitch well, you might want to keep them around for a week or two as well. I'll throw it over to you to start as the guest here. Give me a guy for this week that you want to roster for a start this week and maybe even beyond.
Yeah, so I'll start with Daniel Lynch because, Daniel Lynch, he's another candidate in this Royals slew of pitching and pitching prospects that just has not put it all together. And we keep, kind of shaming the Royals pitching development for that. But Lynch has always been the guy for me that was my favorite of the crop, and a guy for me that I've always felt has the best chance to put it all together. And it looks like he's starting to figure it out at the big league level. You can look at the Savant page, and yes, there's some concerns with the loud contacts here and there and whatever. I'm not really that worried about it. Small sample size. What stands out the most to me is that he is commanding his stuff better than ever, which is the most integral part of everything because the slider is nasty. The fastball has a unique profile, and the changeup he never had enough confidence in. Now he's using that a little bit more as well and using it with a bit more effectiveness as well. It doesn't need to be a great pitch, just needs to be average to help the other two pitches play up. He's doing that. No one's hitting the slider. The fastball has been good enough. And I think, in the right matchups, Daniel Lynch can give you 5-6 strong innings. And I think he's done that already. You look at 21 innings this year, a 3.86 ERA, but I do think he's going to get better and better as the season goes on and moves forward. I see a much more polished and confident pitcher. And I really do think in the right spots, Lynch can give you a very valuable start. He will have his blow up starts from time to time. You definitely want to pull him out of your lineup when he's pitching against the Yankees or whoever else, even though he already did have a good outing. I believe it was against the Yankees back yesterday, right? It was yesterday where he went 5 innings, 4 strikeouts, 3 earned runs, and 1 home run, 1 walk. So, I think you got to pick the right spots. Obviously, I wouldn't want to throw him in the lineup again against the Yankees, but if he's pitching against the Royals, I'll let it rip. Yeah. Sorry, if he's pitching against the Cardinals or hold on. Can we cut that? I totally got lost for a second.
No worries. Jump back in.
The page and it was all over the place. Hold on.
He gets the Orioles later this week.
Okay, cool. So I know he was effective against the Yankees. Probably wouldn't want to test that again for a young pitcher with such advanced hitters against him. But when he's going against a young lineup like he is this week, like the Orioles, the way he's looked, I think that he can carve through those guys. And he seems to have figured himself out as a pitcher in a lot of ways. And he has a ton of upside.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, you get the Yankees, you pitch well, and then the next week you get the Orioles. I mean, that's like going from facing, the best team in the league, the best lineup in the league, to facing practically a minor league lineup at this point. And he gets the Orioles. I believe the Orioles will be at home, and that ballpark this year is playing huge. Nobody can hit in that ballpark after they've, I got called out in the comments in the last episode for not bringing this up about Trey Mancini. I'll mention it today. That ballpark, no one has been able to hit in that ballpark. I'm going to go for another Royals pitcher, Brad Keller. Not exactly a young gun, but still just 26. I don't know why. I feel like this guy, I thought he was 30 years old by now. I feel like he's been in the league for since 2018, right? He came up as a 22-year-old. He's way past his hype at this point, but he's pitched well this year. 2.19 ERA, 2.91 xERA. He's not going to give you a ton in the strikeout department, but this is a guy that can go deep into games. He's a ground ball pitcher, gets a lot of soft contact. And again, he's going to get the Orioles this week. And that this is a spot for him to go 6-7 strong and give you, a quality start, hopefully a win. And I think it's a guy that one, potentially you pick up for this week, but 2, I think you could keep him around just because of how weak that AL Central is, man. I mean, you're going to get the Guardians. The White Sox even can't hit right now, right? The
Lynch
Twins
carved
are
the White
banging.
Sox. Lynch carved the White 6 innings. I think it was no runs, 7 Ks or something like that. He was really good. The White Sox are brutal right now.
They have been brutal, man. I mean, you watch them hit and it just seems like their games go super quick because they don't strike out. They have one of the lowest strikeout rates in baseball right now, but they ground out and weakly fly out on first or second pitch in at bats, and the games just fly by. I mean, Michael Lorenzen carved them for 8 1/3, could have finished the complete game, but he only had 2 strikeouts, right? He was just getting ground balls.
And I love that. And speaking of ground balls, a guy that, as we're recording this, it's cutting it close to his first start of the week, but I think he's still a good guy to pick up if you are thinking about it even after he already threw. But Chris Paddock is somebody that, again, they've got a pretty soft schedule coming up between the Orioles for a 4-game set. Then they have Oakland for a 3-game set. Astros will be tough. I don't know how it's going to work with the rotation. He might be able to dodge them. Then it's Guardians.
Even the Astros haven't been great.
Yeah. And then it's Guardians, back to Oakland, back to Kansas City, then the Tigers, back to Kansas City, then back to the Tigers. It is pretty beatable competition over this month. But not only that, I mean, you look at Chris Paddock, he looks a lot like the guy that first came up that, was getting a little bit of the cowboy head with the hat. And, people were gassing him up and Marlins fans were miserable because, they traded Fernando Rodney, who was 42 years old, or traded him for.
I thought Paddock was an ace.
Yeah.
I'll go on record saying that.
He's recaptured that form and not ace form, but at least recaptured that burgeoning, middle of the rotation type of starter form that we'll see if he can sustain it. But you look at the metrics, everything looks good. You look at the starts, he's locating better than he ever has. His walk rate is the lowest it's ever been. His strikeout rate is consistent. That was never a problem. So he's a guy that's kind of figured himself out a little bit. Again, had to go through the struggles and now has really gotten himself in a place where he's locating, he's using his curveball now, which is not a great pitch, but it's enough to keep in the back of minds of hitters. And the changeup is the MO there right off of the fastball. He's not going to be fantastic. He's not going to be an ace. I think we've shifted that, but I do think that he could be a really solid back end of the rotation starter. And for your fantasy team, could be more than solid, especially because it's a lot of weak competition.
Yeah, I think this is an interesting one. I don't know if he's a streamer. I think I might be interested in picking him up. You mentioned the curveball as being not that great, but last year had one of the lowest WOBAs against. This year, a 244 xWOBA against that pitch. It doesn't get a ton of whiffs, but it gets enough whiffs and a bunch of called strikes that it's effective. But you mentioned the location. I think that's the biggest thing here with Paddock is he's elevating the fastball. He's keeping a changeup now that he's throwing 10% more than he did last year. So he's found that pitch again, which is fantastic. And he's locating that down in the zone. And the changeup, the curveball as well, down in the zone. Guys are not swinging it, but it's that tunneling. It's the location that's spot on for Paddock. And that's just what he's going to have to do because he's not going to blow it by you at 97. I mean, he throws 93, which is fine, but he's not going to blow it by you.
100%. And I love that he has his plan now and you can see it working. And I don't think it's a coincidence. I actually think he's a guy you pick up and hold.
Absolutely. So I'm going to finish off the episode with one final pitcher. It's another prospect. I feel like we've just been talking about the young guns, but everybody's obsessed with the young guns. It's Reed Detmers, who was considered, a top 30, 40 prospect by many. I'm sure you were pretty high on him as well. It was kind of weird because he was in the MLB last year, so we didn't really rank him on the top 100 prospects list. But this guy's effective, right? Fastball up in the zone. He's a southpaw with a nasty, nasty curveball. And he didn't start the year great, right? He gave up 5 earned to the Rangers and, was kind of just finding his feel to begin the season. But he has 2 straight starts of 5 innings, 2 earned against Baltimore, 1 earned against the Guardians last start. 4 Ks in each of those starts. It's nothing crazy, but he's only walked 1 in each of those starts and has only given up he gave up 3 hits to the Orioles, 2 hits to the Guardians. He's been effective. And I think as the season goes on, he's going to start building up and going deeper into starts. And this is a guy with pedigree that's finally finding his way on how to get MLB batters out.
And remember, he was someone that was way ahead of schedule, right? I mean, this was somebody that really skipped through the minors relatively quickly, is still just 22 years old, and was a 2020 draftee. So drafted into a year where he can't pitch in organized games. 2021 was his first professional season, and he leapfrogs to the major league. So just because there were growing pains in the first stint doesn't mean that Reed Detmers isn't going to be a legitimate starting pitcher. And I think, that's the thing is they could have just kept him in Double-A. He'd be carving there and just be carving it up, and we'd be regarding him as his top prospect. So really, I don't think that the Angels' perspective on Detmers has changed. The prospect ranking world has probably, gone a little bit colder on Detmers just because you have to be somewhat results-based. But the Angels kind of knew that they were putting him in a position to maybe not have the best results, but they knew that he was able to endure that. Now he's learning. He continues to get better. The big thing for him is keeping the ball in the yard. He's done that thus far. I think he's given up 1 home run over his last 3 starts. He's going to elevate that fastball and get swings and misses. He's going to have his blow up starts too. He's another guy that's like that, but he continues to get better. I think Detmers is a good guy to pick up and hold too, especially if you're in a dynasty league, because again, he's 22 years old. He's going to get better and better. And I think we're already seeing flashes of that because he's getting outs without striking guys out. Whereas before it was like, give up the home run, capture back in and strike out the side. Like that's how it was for him. Now he's getting outs, a more sustainable way, which is pitching to them and getting weak contact.
Yep. So I'm going to change the subject real quick. Our listeners have probably seen that the logo art on the show and all the graphics on the show have changed to be presented by Prize Picks. Just Baseball. We're excited that now the Not Gambling Advice show is going to be presented by Prize Picks. We're doing a season-long partnership with Prize Picks, doing a pick every single day on our Twitter account. And you guys can join the fun with us if you go to the link in the description, or if you go and download the Prize Picks app, you can use promo code JustBaseball. They're going to match your deposit 100%. This app is awesome, and it's so much fun. You go in, you build basically like a parlay of props, right? So today I have 3 picks. It's Pablo Lopez over 5.5 strikeouts, Chris Bassett over 5.5 strikeouts. Jake Odorizzi under 3.5 strikeouts. That pays out 5-1. Such a blast, man. This is such a blast of an app. I don't know about you, but I'm going to just be on this every single day.
Well, so I'm a big player props guy personally. And I know Peter is going to be very excited about this because he's a big splits guy. And, splits, I think, are going to be a huge advantage when we're trying to make our picks here with Prize Picks. I'm really excited about this because, again, I don't love betting like full baseball games as much. It's fun. It's fun to keep up with. And I know like it's really fun when you're doing it for a whole year and keeping track, but I honestly like zeroing in on the individual ABs. So that's why I'm super into like daily fantasy, but even that is really difficult because you have a couple guys have a bad game and you're done. I love this angle with Prize Picks because you can pick the over unders on the specific guys that you like. And it just gives you something to follow through the whole day or follow through the whole game. And that's super fun. I think it's more beatable than a lot of other, especially DFS, because DFS is impossible because you have people making a million lineups and a million different combinations, bankrolling tens of thousands of dollars. Here you can put your $10 in, pick your spots and pay out 5-1 on a really cool opportunity, to pick whatever players you want to follow that day. I'm a big fan of it, and that's why it's fun for me. I'm excited, and I'm looking forward to playing a big part in the picks we'll be giving out on Twitter every day on Just Baseball Media on that account.
Yeah, I don't know if it was just beginner's luck, but the first one I did, I hit, of course. But I'm super excited about this one too. We're going to be doing every single week a segment on Not Gambling Advice where we're going to go through and make our own little prize picks every single week for you guys. So we're going to be posting those on Twitter. Make sure you follow along, but go to the link in the episode description. Go download Prize Picks. Use code JustBaseball.
Is it one word or space?
Just one word. Just one word. But it might still go through with the space. We've kind of foolproofed it. So
okay,
just get on there, get on the app and tail us. We'll have a bunch of fun. Guys, that'll do it today. Not Gambling Advice, Monday, May 2nd. Aram, thank you so much for joining, man. I feel like it was like literally the perfect time to have you on the show for the first time and really talk about the young guns that are coming up.
I know. Next time we do this, I definitely want to talk some like a check-in on the league futures. I'd love to talk like rookie of the year, MVP, get into all of that. Because I know Kyle Tucker was an underrated pick we were talking about. My man Kyle Tucker is heating up. So plus 4,000, not a bad sprinkle. Not a bad sprinkle in the AL MVP side of things. But no, I'm looking forward to doing this again on the awards side and looking forward to doing prize picks.
Yeah, man. Aram finishes off the episode with a little Not Gambling Advice Kyle Tucker shout out. I think that'll do it. Thank you guys for listening. Have a good week.